Hey guys, Ben the Humble Wholesaler here. Hey, I just wanted to talk to you about the biggest thing that I learned over the last 10 years of investing. And if I would have known this one thing, then it would have made such a massive difference in my business years and years ago. But I kind of did things the wrong way and the slow way. So I had bought over 100 houses, flipped over 100 properties, which by a lot of metrics is very successful. But had I known this one thing, I probably would have been double or triple that amount. So the one thing I learned was this: as the market changes, your strategy also has to change if you're a home flipper or if you're trying to buy and sell properties. You can't use the same strategy in every market because the dynamics of that market also change. So the key lesson I learned was to evaluate the market at every step of the game and find out exactly what strategy you should be using. So this is it. Don't go at the market with blinders on and don't follow sheep in the market. You have to make your own calculations based on what's available, but you have to know and recognize the opportunities that appear and disappear with each new market. So let me explain. Years ago when I started buying properties, the market was down here. It was a very low market, it was very cheap, so the property values were relatively cheap as well. That meant that I could find deals on the MLS on a regular basis. I would just throw lowball offers at the market, and frankly, I would get some of those deals come my way, and I would win some of those offers and be able to actually do some renovation work and flip the property. Well, as the market turned around and started to increase, what happened was, as the market was rising, more and more investors started entering the market because the market was so attractive to home flippers. So at these points here, we had a lot more investor action enter the market, which made it more and more difficult to get the price that we wanted. So the prices were now going up, and we could no longer find those deals on the MLS. Well, as a result, we just kept trying to buy on the MLS, and we kept trying to flip properties on the MLS and do all the renovation work. Well, but here's the difference. I realized that as the market rised, it created a new opportunity. And this is the one thing that made such a massive difference for our business. So if properties were worth about $100,000 over here, these were worth about $100,000. When the market was cheaper, we were able to start buying those properties for about $80,000. So we're able to get a pretty hefty discount on those properties. Well, as the market started to rise, all of the bidding wars and all of the other investors were driving up the value of the market. So instead of getting them for 80, I was now paying 100, 105, 110, 120. The point is I was paying more than I had paid in the past. And even though I could sell it for more, it turned out to be a big old vacuum, because if we were making about $30,000 here, we were actually making about $25,000 here, because number one, retail buyers had more options of people they could go to and buy the homes, because there's a lot of other homes being flipped on the market because it was active. The other thing was, every time we paid a little bit more marginally for the property, we always ended up paying more for that property in relation to how much more we actually made on the resale. So what it did was it was shrinking our margin, because all of this investor activity was coming into the market, making it more and more difficult for us to buy. So as a result, we were working harder, we were shopping harder, and we weren't finding the deals that we used to find. Well, so then I realized in this kind of market, before there wasn't a lot of investors, there was just a few. But in this new market, there was a whole new group of buyers, the investor buyer, and they had a hungry appetite. So what that meant is that in this kind of market, as the market increases and becomes more and more expensive, we now have two types of common buyers in this market. No longer are you selling like you did here, which I'm going to call business to consumer. That is the end buyer. That's the people living in the home, the mom and pops, the first-time home buyers. In this market, because of the heavy activity of investors, we now have business to business, meaning that this whole market had the same problem that I did, which was they couldn't find deals. They were all bidding on the same properties, creating a bidding wars, which was further driving up the price for themselves. So they were their own worst enemy. I realized that for this market, there was a need for somebody to come in down here at prices below market value and start supplying all of these investors with deals. So they weren't getting them on the traditional source because as the market changed, the traditional method of buying on the MLS was no longer a viable option. Because as more people were introduced into that marketplace, the supply and demand of it, because there was limited supply of properties and there was a ton of new demand, the prices were increasing, hence the margins were shrinking. So, however, this market created a very interesting opportunity for somebody to come in and collect all the properties, if you could get them, and start supplying the business to business. So, what this is called now, this new business model is called wholesaling. So, in a hot market where there's a ton of demand, anytime there's a demand for anything, you've created a market now for wholesalers. These are people who can literally be deal finders. You find the deals, you supply the other business owners, you supply the other investors directly with deals. So instead of dealing with business to consumer, you're now dealing business to business. So when the market is super hot, if your market is hot, that means there's a ton of opportunity because everybody else wants to flip properties. There's a ton of opportunity to supply those people with deals and then let them finish the work. So as an example, let me show you why it's considerably more profitable to be a wholesaler than to be a house flipper. Here's an average deal that I would used to do all the time. So I would buy a property for $100,000. I would spend about $30,000 in renos. Now, to do $30,000 in renovations, I would have to hire probably about 4 employees, which meant I would have to deal with all of the liability of having 4 employees, the monthly overhead of employing those people. I'd have to deal with all the issues and personal problems of employing and managing other people. So I'd have a cost basis of $130,000. Well, the average renovation took about 3 months to complete. So you can imagine 4 employees times 3 months. That's a lot of money. And then we would sell that property for $160,000. So that would give us a net profit of $30,000 profit. And if we broke that down per month, it would give us about $10K a month. Or you're going to have $120,000 a year. So under the traditional flipping model, in the hot market, you're going to make about $120,000 a year. Renovations. Materials, no materials. Permits, no permits. And in a lot of cases, we never even have to close on the property. We never even have to get a mortgage because we're simply finding the deals. So the secret is this: you make a lot more money by actually finding the deals, taking a chunk of the deal up front, than trying to do all of the work and sell that property yourself. And why is that? Well, 30 years ago, we used to live in the industrial age, where people traded time for money, and the way to get ahead was to go to a factory and make money and produce. But today we live in the information age. So information is the greatest income producer possible. If you have the information and the skills to find the deals, you can literally become the wholesaler in the transaction. Because the further down you go and the lower the price you get for anything, the more money you're going to make because you can leverage. So let me give you another quick example to make sense of this. If you look at owning a McDonald's restaurant, I pulled some numbers. The average McDonald's costs between $1 to $2.2 million to purchase if you wanted to be a franchisee. Now, as a franchisee, you're going to work 10 hours a day, you're going to train, you're going to employ the people, you're going to deal with all the headaches, you're going to run the entire store, and the average McDonald's makes about $87,000 a year. $87,000, which in all comparison, even if you spend $1 million, that's an 8.7 return on capital, and you work 10 hours a day. That is a horrible, horrible return on your time and on your capital. Now, that person does all of the work, and they have all the money invested in the deal. Whereas McDonald's corporate office, they make about 4% of all gross profit. The average McDonald's makes about $2.6 million of gross per year, which means that the average store pays McDonald's Corporation $104,000 a year. These guys have a list of things that they need to do and work 10 hours a day. The store employs very few people. The management employs very few people, and they make more money. So the secret is this: they are wholesaling, they are supplying the store. So in this case, you need to supply business to business. So in a hot market, you want to be supplying other businesses, because that's where the money is made, not in supplying renovations or materials. So when you have to choose between fix and flip, or become a wholesaler, this business will pay you more money, this business will take less time, this business will have less overhead, and this business has just a lot more longevity and scalability. So the reality is, you need to learn how to wholesale deals and become the wholesaler. And you know what? If you wanted to keep a couple of these deals, you keep a couple of deals and you fix and flip them. But the point is, if you're shopping on the MLS in a hot market, you are throwing money away. Not to mention the realtor takes a chunk of it anyways for his own commission. So the only real way to scale this business, even though it is more convenient to shop on the MLS, you need to be willing to stop shopping on the MLS, and you need to start finding your own deals and becoming an active wholesaler. And that is the secret that I wish I would have known for the last 10 years. Because even though I flipped over 140 houses here in my local market of Southwestern Ontario, I know that I could have wholesaled and flipped 200-300 houses had I just used this wholesaling strategy. So in a hot market, wholesaling is the highest paid business grind, not fixing and flipping. So until next time, take care and stay humble. Peace.